So, as Kathy said, my name is Brent Bankston, and this is my wife, Lee. And as she alluded to, we have a family business. So when I was 15 years old, I had my dream come true. My father said, this town could use another comic book store. And I was like, woohoo! Because my dad worked all the time, and I'll show this video here in a minute. And I wanted to transport y'all. So I wanted to give y'all the opportunity to see kind of what we do, why we do it, and kind of our philosophy of what our DNA is, what our DNA of our businesses are. As Kathy alluded to as well, we have stores in Waco. So Waco store is the original store, which opened in 1985. Bankston's initially was a tire and muffler business. So that's what I grew up in. So when I was age 8 to about 14, that's what I did every day. So in Robinson, as Kathy was, she and I were talking about earlier, so I was doing, tires and mufflers and flats and all kinds of things. That's what I did. And so that's where my roots and kind of started to kind of plant of retail. That's why we used to have gas as well, gas station, and all these different things. So this is kind of where and what and how this kind of began. So I won't say too much more, and I'll play this, and then after it's over, we'll do some more just kind of chit chat about that. So let me get this going for you. So my father was always a hoarder, right? So he always collected stuff, and he sees value. He's one of those kids that grew up on a poor dirt farm kind of scenario. So to him, he saw value in things that most people did not. And so therefore, he was kind of a driving force in everything that we did. I think that having that concept and that belief that we're doing something not for ourselves, it's something greater than that. So we strive to please people, we strive to help people, strive to continue to be a family-oriented business. And hence why Lee is obviously now the chef at Buttermilk Biscuit inside King's Landing. So we added coffee, we added craft beer, and we added the video games. So we added the vintage cabinets with the arcades and the video games and the pinballs. All those things kind of came all in the same process. So we were like, let's do that, let's do that. And so adding the restaurant was a byproduct of Lee being a caterer and therefore having a professional kitchen. I don't think we ever thought through the consequences of all those things becoming one entity. And most people will look at it, and so in fact, Scott Cunningham is a friend of mine who teaches at Baylor, talks about that very thing. He said, you have a unique concept. That's the way he'll put it. Number one, I believe in God's sovereignty. I believe that things happen for a reason. And so everything is an opportunity in my perspective. So the same concepts that we strive to provide, which are an open, friendly, welcoming atmosphere, that's what we want to do. And that comes from customer service. But the products, that's part of it as well. People enjoy some of the things we do. If it's comic books or baseball cards or toys or now video games, coffee, food, great food to say that. If you engage a customer and they feel your heart, they know that. If they sense that you are genuinely concerned for them and care for them, then they know that. And that's something that, like her food, speaks for itself. She puts her lifeblood and all her work into that food. We do the same thing at Banston's for if it's buying a baseball card or a comic. We care more for the person. So my parents told me long ago, think long-term, not short-term. If you're thinking long-term and you value the relationship more than that transaction, then that customer's gonna come back and back and back. So for 33 years, that's been the case here at Bankston's, and now for a year plus at King's Landing. I think many people have said it more eloquently than me, but don't be afraid to fail. For us, it's customer service. We strive for that, but we have failed. We've not succeeded in every realm of 100%. We strive for that. If you're putting your best foot forward, then you have nothing to question. You put everything out there. And then if you do fail, hey, we put it all out there. It's okay. What we've built here and created here is very unique. And I think that's what most people are surprised by. So not only is the customer service and the engagement and the personal connection that we make with our customers, but it's creating something that's unique. So you might find a decent card shop in your town, or a decent comic book shop, or a toy store, or whatever it may be, but you're not gonna find something like this. And that's what's unique about this particular scenario. Having an entity that provides a form of entertainment that's so unique, and the fact that it's in Waco, Texas. That is something that I don't think you find, and we do provide here at Bankston's and Kings Landing. That's what we do. That's what we are. So my father, as I referenced in the video, he's still alive. He's 78, he'll be 79 this year, and until recently they still did our books. And so that's been a whole other evolution of trying to find the right bookkeeper and having somebody, your parents who've done so much for you for so long, and then now those roles change, right? Much like Lee's role has changed. And so she made me promise when we got married that I would not make her work at the store. That's just her, that was kind of our, part of the nuptials, right? So
I really did make him do that. And then he got me in here anyway. But I don't know if this is working. Is it working? Okay. But yeah, I totally did. I did not, I liked the store. When it first opened up, he didn't mention this. It was a used bookstore. I loved to read. I would come in there and I would sit in the corner and I'd pick out a book and I'd wait on him and we'd go eat lunch and I'd come back and I'd read some more.
It was her personal library.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I was like, just when we get married, I don't ever want to work here because I don't know comic books. I don't know any of this stuff. I had no idea. And he was like, sure, no problem. And here I am.
So all these years later, and so to kind of back up a little bit, so the Pizza Patron next to us, is anybody here familiar with Bankston's at all? Anybody been there? All right, more than I expected. Awesome, good job. So Bankston's, like I said, it's been there since 1985. I was 15 when we opened, and it was a great opportunity for me just to kind of see business, work it from the front end, see and understand customer relationships, much like I referenced in the video. That's where the magic happens. And Lee knows that now because there's not a more magical moment. I see Justice there. He probably realizes this. There's not a more magical moment when she brings out that food. When she hands that food over to those customers at their table, that's a magical moment. So talk about that a little bit.
It is. It's really fun. I just cook because I love to cook. I have zero training. I've never been to any cooking school, never anything. I thought everybody ate the way we ate at home in their house. I really did. I had no idea that I had any kind of talent. I'm still not 100% convinced, but I just cook because I love it. And I just kind of started cooking for friends randomly. I never intended to be a caterer. I never intended to be a restaurateur at all. I just cooked, and one of my friends, Nancy Hatton, actually, our pastor's wife, she said one day I brought her some food for something. She was like, Lee, people would buy your food. I was like, no, they wouldn't. That's just crazy. And the next thing you know, I'm making tamales, and people at church are buying them, and they're like, well, can I put my friend on your list for when you make tamales? Because they want some. I'm like, sure. So next thing you know, I'm having tamales. People driving by my house, picking up tamales all the time. And
well, tell them why you made tamales.
I made tamales because our son's allergic to the earth. But, I mean, it was like necessity. There was nothing that he could eat, really. He could eat meat and he could eat corn. And we had people that made them for us, and then they moved out of town. That family left, and I am scared of mystery meat tamales. It is ingrained in me. I do not eat meat that I don't know where it comes from. I don't want fat in my meat. I don't want anything crunchy in my meat, and that freaks me out. And so I was like, once they left, I was like, well, I'm not buying tamales from anywhere else because I don't trust these people. So I was like, I can figure this out. I know I can do it. So, Google is everybody's best friend. So I Google it. I'm like, okay, I can do that. So I make tamales for our son so he can eat when we're eating anything else that he can't eat. So
that's kind of the origin of some of her. So then she started catering from that. So families would come by.
Because I got bored with tamales one week, and I went, what happens if I send out my text this week and say, I'm making blackened chicken pasta this week with a salad? And people were like, okay, I'll come pick that up. So they did. So that was how it began. Then our church had me cater like the elders' Christmas luncheon. Then my brother-in-law calls and said, hey, can you do our Christmas party here? I'm like, sure. And so it was just like one thing led to another. And the next thing you know, people think I know what I'm doing. And I'm a caterer. And I was like, okay, sure.
So then that beget Kings Landing. So what happened was at Bankston's, which is on South Holly Mills Drive, right next door, Pizza Patron, I referenced that earlier, left. And they wanted to move down to I-35 with a drive-through. I totally get that. So it left a spot literally 90 feet from our front door. And as a result, we realized, hey, let's expand our gaming section. Gaming has obviously become very vital, very community-related, very interactive. Justice knows this very directly. So people want to play if it's not only board games or Kickstarter games or Magic or Pokemon or D&D or whatever it may be. So we needed some place that was designated to do that, and that's what Kings Landing was going to be. Well, it's dark, and just by God's providence, I referenced that in the video, by God's providence, our landlord was in town. They're never in town. They're out of San Antonio. So this is on a Saturday, and on Monday they're in town when I'm calling them. And she's like, I'm in town right now. So I went over, we looked at it, and in the kitchen, so it's dark and dingy, and it's an old pizza place, right? So it's kind of slimy.
And it's dirty. It's really, really dirty.
So everything was dark and everything, and I'm walking around, and it's got FRP panels, if you know what that is, real slick stuff on the walls. We're looking around. Well, in the back was a water heater. And I thought, water heater? Yeah. Professional kitchen. I knew that she wanted a professional kitchen. And she's walking out of HEB.
Literally, I've just gone grocery shopping, walking out of HEB, he calls, he's like, hey, I think I have a kitchen for you. I'm like, okay.
And that put us on the path we are right now. And so
I had no idea what I was doing at the time.
She probably regrets that decision, really.
I had no clue how much blood, sweat, and tears was coming after that. Okay.
So yeah, the result of this is so it's a year and 2 months now, so we've been open. So to talk about the strife that we've been through, so you realize when you have to obviously get the city on board, which is difficult. Then you have to, for us, it was get the TABC, which she did, and that was jumping through tons of hoops.
That was going to every government building in Waco.
Literally.
And handing them these forms, thinking, somebody just take these forms from me. We filled it out. And they would stamp it and hand it back to me, and I would look at them and I'd go, now what? What do I do with these? I'm trying to give these to someone. And they're like, oh, well, you got to go to this building.
Water department.
I mean, like 5 different buildings. And I'm like, why do y'all keep giving these back to me? I don't know what to do. So finally, we handed them off and we didn't have to take them back anymore. But it took a long time.
So that's, and that's my encouragement is that I think opportunities present themselves. It's a matter if you have the endurance. So it's not a race and a speed race, right? It's an endurance. It's a marathon. It's you getting through this path and committing to something greater than yourself. Number one, if we relied just on each other, this would all crumble many years ago, including my parents and my brother and all their stores. But you have to look to something greater than yourself. And that's the only way we can get through all this. It's just realizing that and that's true for a relationship. If she and I relied upon each other, if I relied just on her as my savior, it wouldn't work out. But having a savior and looking at him and not realizing that there's a lot of chaos and everything every single day. So every day we wake up, and Justice is going to find this amusing, every day we wake up, every moment that we're there is something to be done. We have so many irons in the fire. So we have Bankston's, we have Austin Books, we have King's Landing, we have Outlaw Moon, we have Guzu, we have Sidekick. So we have all these stores, and my brother runs some in Austin, and obviously we run the ones here. But it's a commitment. It's something greater than I ever expected that we could do on a daily basis. You have to have good people around you, right? You have to have...
And they're hard to find.
Yeah,
they're hard
true.
to find.
That's true.
But keep looking. They're there, but it just may take you longer. You may think you've got everybody hired that you just need, and it just doesn't work out sometimes.
Sure.
My other thing that I want to say real quick is always admit that you're ignorant. I am not stupid. I'm a smart lady, but I am ignorant about a lot of things because I just don't know yet. I didn't know how to run a kitchen. I didn't know how to run a game store, but I can learn, and you have to be willing to learn. And that's one thing we always tell all our employees is, you can do this better than me, but show me how, and I can learn. And I can get better. And I'm right here on the floor with you scrubbing this grout. I'm not ever going to ask you to do something that I won't do or I haven't already done 15 times. I've stuck my hand in a public toilet, and that was not fun. And I didn't want to do it, but I'm willing to do it. And I think our people see us and they realize that we're right there beside them. We're not in front of them. We're not ever trying to tell them, well, you go do this little job. So I tell them all the time, I'm ignorant, but teach me, just show me something, and I learn every day.
Sure, and part of that's the humility aspect, right? And so realizing that we're not above anybody, we're just in this fight with you, and that we're all in this together. And so that's what I think she's alluding to, is that there's just a point in our relationship as a member of the community, as a member of the business community, as interacting with customers. And so I think that's the ongoing kind of efforts that you have to make and realize that, hey, we're all in this together. Because without customers, her cooking, us selling products, doesn't matter if we don't have that relationship with our customers, right? So you have to commit to something, commit to them, even if they're not coming in through the door. I mean, that's tough. When you actually have to think through and commit to something that they're not coming. And some days that's the way it is. But you have to have a belief that, hey, this is going to play out. Long term, not short term, right? So, what else?
Oh, there's something else we were talking about.
I don't know. You can talk about that.
I know, sorry. I was trying to think, and I can't think and talk at the same time. It was, I don't remember.
So, anyway, there's some of the caveats to what we do. We obviously have our businesses in a very discretionary. You know, not everybody needs sports cards. Not everybody needs comic books. Not everybody needs toys. Not everybody needs. I mean, I grew up in tires and mufflers, right? So tires and mufflers are something you kind of have to have at some point in your life. These things, these are all discretionary things. I mean, as we were talking about earlier, this is really cool and I like it, but you don't have to have this, right? So these are the kind of things that we carry at our store, and Bankston's primarily, not King's Landing. But there's a lot of stuff that we rely upon just because Kathy made the point about us bringing props. I brought these because these are the things that we do. Here's a Spider-Man #1. Here's a plush die.
Yeah.
Some autograph stuff and different things. So it's finding that niche. So whatever realm that you're going to go in your life, whatever place that you find, whatever your DNA is, what you love, your passion, you're going to have to commit to something, right? So that's kind of the reference of this whole thing, is that think long term, not short term. Think of your products. Think of whatever we found out a couple days ago that Jerry Hodge, a guy that used to go to our church, has oyster kits. Oyster kits. So it's a travel
They're really
kit.
Cool too. If you don't have one and you travel, you should go look at his website.
So
there's my plug for Jerry.
I didn't realize that he was passionate about these things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, it's amazing. Yeah. And so that's my encouragement to you as young entrepreneurs and individuals out there in this world. Find your passion. And like I said in the video, don't be afraid to fail. I mean, Lee just referenced being ignorant. Yeah, we're ignorant about a lot of things, but we learn and we can figure it out.
And we're overwhelmed a lot. I don't want anybody, if you ever are thinking about, if you're here because you're thinking, oh, I have this great idea and I want to open this business, don't ever think you're not going to have nights where you're just going to sit there and go, oh my gosh, what have we done? Because you will, because we're tired. I mean, the reality is we work hard. We work a lot of hours, because like finding good people, they're hard to find. If somebody doesn't come that day, well, who has to fill in? Well, if you don't have anybody else, it's you. It's always you. But if you want it done right, a lot of times that means it's still you and you're the one that's there. I tell my kids, this is my newest phrase now to describe how I feel sometimes when they're like, Mom, you forgot this. Because I was a stay-at-home mom for 17 years. Our home life's changed drastically in the last year and a half. And so I tell my kids all the time, they're like, Mom, you didn't do this. I'm like, I'm like your computer screen, honey. I got too many tabs open right now. I was like, Mommy's got to X some things out. And then I can get back to you on that. But I feel like starting something new like this is just being aware that you're gonna have too many tabs open. There's just a lot to do. So just go into it knowing that. I wish we had. We thought we could do anything. We've been very humbled by this process. But you're gonna be busier than you ever thought you would be. You're gonna have less time on your own than you ever thought you would have. And it's hard work. You just have to be prepped to work and work hard, work on days when you don't want to work. I mean, I looked at Brent the other day. I was like, what are we going to do if I get the flu? We don't have another cook. I'm like, if I get the flu, I still don't know what happens. I have no answer to that. I don't know what happens.
I'm taking Holland out of school.
Yeah, our kids work in our store. I don't think he's mentioned that yet, but we have one who's graduated college, so she was gone by the time we opened this, so she may consider herself lucky because of that. The other two are still at home, one's 17 and 14, and so they work with us, and now they work in the kitchen on Saturday mornings. They're our best help in the kitchen. I mean, they've eaten my food their whole lives. They know how picky I am about some things and they hear me complain about when things aren't done right. So, and they're in their Saturday mornings. Do they want to wake up early on Saturday mornings when their other friends are asleep? No, but they do it. I mean, and they're our best help. We actually had a wedding to go to in October. I tell this story all the time. And we had to leave at like 9 in the morning. Well, the kitchen's open all day Saturday. And I'm like, well, Bax and Holland can't go to the wedding, so you're it. So I get up at like 3 o'clock. I make biscuits, get everything set up. They know how to do pretty much everything. They ran the kitchen. We left our kitchen in the hands of a 16 and a 13-year-old, and we were like, we're confident in that because they're the best employees we have. They really are. And I mean, people look at us like we've sprouted another head. They're like, what? I'm like, they're good. They know what they're doing. And it's like, I'm constantly, if anybody knows how to cook, by the way, I'm hiring. So I'm always looking for somebody who can just do what I do. I'm like, we need somebody who can do that in case I do get the flu. It'd be great to know somebody else could hop in there, but that's just where we're at right now. We're still new and figuring it out. So every day is a new adventure, for sure.
Oh, yeah. So that's kind of the DNA of what we do. Obviously, we kind of referenced some of the things. Ultimately, it's kind of overwhelming in some ways, and you're looking at two real tired people right now. We work real hard, but there's also rewarding aspects. Lee doesn't know what that reward is yet.
I'm still waiting for the reward. No.
But the reality is that owning your own business and working and becoming an entrepreneur, there's something, a deep satisfaction about it, and there's a commitment, like I said, that it's an intangible. It's you can't quantify it. Each of your realms is going to be different, and so what you have to do and how you go about it takes a long time, just kind of discovery. Bankston's obviously we've been doing it for 33 years, and so we kind of have that down. This is a whole new adventure, especially building up from the ground up, kind of a new foundation, and that's difficult. So putting parameters and expectations. And that's one of the difficult things about a restaurant and King's Landing, which is, I don't know if I detailed all those things. So it has board games, card games, video games, arcade, like stand-up pinballs and all kinds like that, craft beer, coffee.
Really good craft beer.
Yeah.
And wine. I'm a wino, so we have really fun wines too.
And then in addition to that, obviously Lee's cooking. And so that's the kind of the amalgamation we've made. And Waco just needed more cool places in my estimation. And I felt like that was not our intention, as I referenced in the video, but it just kind of happened that way. So someone would come along, we're like, yeah, let's do that, let's do that, let's do that, let's do that, let's do that.
Yeah, the coffee is fabulous. We have our own roast of coffee. We have it done here locally at Apex. They roast it, they pull it in from Costa Rica. Ours is Costa Rican blend. Super yummy. So we have some great baristas that are very talented that make lattes, iced lattes, brewed coffee. You can buy our coffee by the bag too. I mean, we actually have a real bag, and it's Excalibur blend coffee. And so I know this is sacrilege because I am a Starbucks fan. I have the mobile app. Yes, I order. I eat it all the time, drink it all the time. But our coffee's better than Starbucks. You should come try it. It's really good.
That's the commercial part.
There's my plug. But it's delicious coffee if you like coffee. He doesn't, but I do.
So it's special, and Justice could comment on this if he wants here in a little bit, but it's special on a Friday or Saturday night when she's serving food, and every table is full of families playing games, and they're interacting. So in a world where we're constantly on our phones or on our laptops or our table or our desktops or whatever it may be, our tablets, to see families engaging each other face to face. And that's special. And having groups of families and
you don't
people,
have to buy the games there. We have like this whole shift robe full of games. You just come in, pull out a board game, sit down, start playing and chilling, hanging out with your friends. I mean, it really is a cool place.
So we're already expanding to 3,500 additional square feet. So we're already doing that here in the next few months. And just because we need more space for people to eat. So we're already maxed out on most nights. She started doing lunches January 2nd, 10 to 2, Tuesday through Saturday.
Mainly because I wanted 2 days off, so that's why it's Tuesday through Saturday, so I can rest on Sunday and Monday. Because otherwise, if the kitchen was open, I had to be there.
So that's part of the kind of the aspect of the behind the scenes. That's the kind of things that we struggle with. That's the kind of things that we have to effort and try to work and build and finding the right people. Because as she alluded to just a minute ago, not everybody has that skill set. Everybody has that ability to, number one, articulate, communicate with customers, cook, make coffee. You kind of have to find the right pieces. So we went from 5 employees at Bankston's to 29 total. That's how many employees we now have. We employ 29 people, and this one doesn't even get paid. So that's, she's our golden goose, and she doesn't get paid. So we LLC'd about 2 years ago, and so her and my pay are together, and so she feels like that's a detriment to her. She wants some compensation. She wants a check
the money.
Yeah. But that long-term perspective, we have to realize, hey, this is what we have to sacrifice now for the long-term objectives of our business and for the hopeful kind of customers. Because you know this, anytime you start something out, it takes time. We are benefiting greatly from Bankston's being there. So Bankston's being there sends customers to King's Landing. What I did not anticipate was the benefit of having King's Landing customers coming to Bankston's. And so it's turned into this very cyclical effect. So on a Saturday, it's not anything different to have customers come eat breakfast, then they come to Bankston's.
They find us on Yelp too. I mean, it's been crazy, the social media and just the, Google when you're traveling through town. We had people from Oregon the other day that stopped by to eat because they found us on Yelp. And we were like, that's cool.
And then she convinced you that you have to take her in the kitchen and show her how you made your sauce or something.
Yeah. So anyway, it was really fun.
So just this world of kind of exposure, being in a different realm, And so Bankston's will benefit, King's Landing benefits, and those things kind of interact. So customers will come in, they'll eat breakfast at King's Landing or at Buttermilk Biscuit, then they go to Bankston's, then they go see a movie, then they come back later in the day, I see them. So it's this whole effect that we have. And so that's kind of the drawn out aspect of what we've benefited from. Coming up is Free Comic Book Day, and if anybody's familiar with that, that's our national holiday for comic book shops. So first Saturday in May of every single year since 2001, we give away thousands of comic books. And it's grown from several hundred people initially to roughly about 2,500 people came last year. So it's a huge event. People come from all over. We have a festival. We have obviously a beer garden. We have King's Landing that's open as well. We do the blow-ups and the bouncy houses and all that stuff. And I'm already starting to dread it because it's coming soon, and we got to start planning it. Yeah. And so this is the sheer volume of people. And so you realize that South Waco turns into this festival. And it's a little bit overwhelming when we start to think about that. Yeah. So I think that's what I've got. Anybody else? So why don't you start some Q&A if you want to have some questions. Justice, you want to comment on anything?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I'm there all the time. My wife, we love it. We'll go down. The coffee is better than Starbucks. I was a barista at Starbucks for a long time. It's really good. They got a good plan.
Give you the mic.
It's nice.
Just give you the mic.
But yeah.
The mic needs to go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, do you want to give it? Sure.
I want to give you the mic, Justice. I want to take the pressure off me.
Yeah, so I'm a giant nerd. I'm an MBA student here. I got into Dungeons and Dragons my junior year of college. Didn't think I was going to be there. Nerd culture is awesome. You should check it out. But no, it's very accessible. Lee and Brent have some big variety of customers that come in. And it's interesting sometimes seeing about that lunch rush. You get people that you wouldn't expect to see in a game store, and they kind of look at each other. You see like the nerds, and then you see the not nerds, and it's kind of like a zoo experience. Both of the sides looking at each other. But you get a lot of overlap there. You'll have. I was talking about this with Brent a couple weeks ago. Even though you might not get the customers that you think you would, they can see something there, and they might have somebody they're thinking about next time they have a birthday party or something like that. And they'll think about Bankston's Comics and King's Landing, and they'll refer it and stop by, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think he's right. That's the long-term perspective. You realize that you have impact upon people that you. So Justice is nicely saying, we have an elderly crowd that loves Lee's food. They love breakfast, and apparently there's.
These are people I've catered for before, and so I have my own little following.
I'm talking beyond
Some
that.
of them,
Recently, we started advertising campaign and started at the beginning of the year, and now you're getting lots of older people coming in. I'm talking like 70, 80-year-old women.
And they're so adorable. I just love them. Yeah.
And so those are the people that are then kind of looking at the dragon on the wall or the mind flayer up on the wall, and they're like, what is this place, right? And then you get, like he said, the territories. So you got people who are used to this is my space where I play my Pokemon or my Yu-Gi-Oh! Versus people who are walking in like, I just want to eat. So it's an interesting dynamic, and just having all these things kind of wound together. But I believe that obviously the more people we have, the more benefit we have, and the more they enjoy it, I think it's kind of crossing over. I think these guys had a question right here.
Anybody have a question? Want this microphone?
Y'all started out family business, comic books and such, and then moved over to food. So obviously that's a huge transition. And so you were a caterer, great cook, blah, 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 blah. Fabulous story. But can you talk about the decisions on where do you buy your ingredients? And, obviously there are other licenses and things that you have to, you touched on the alcohol part, but, just to serve food and the kitchen and, you had a hot water heater, but what else do you need? And what do you have to do to have that kitchen up and running? And how difficult was it going from comic books and collectibles and fun stuff, and then all of a sudden, wow, you have this kitchen that you have to maintain, and the food and the customers and all those different things that you touched on the hoops you had to jump through to get to having a safe and approved kitchen to serve this fabulous food.
Yeah, we weren't prepared for that either. That was another huge learning curve. Just the amount of equipment and things that you have to have. I mean, all the things that I love my kitchen at work. I wish I could have all that equipment at home. It's super cool, but it comes with a super cool price tag too. So we did. It was a big investment to have to buy this commercial refrigerator, this huge oven to cook all these biscuits, We have a griddle. It was a ton, and we had to get licensed. I had to go get a food manager's certification. Every person who works there has to have a food handler's license, a TABC license. There always has to be a food manager on duty. I mean, we're learning all this as we go. We didn't know. We learned it before we opened, obviously, but I mean, it was a huge amount of learning, and that's what that comes back to being ignorant again. We didn't know. I'd never even worked in a restaurant. I mean, I served in college one time at a Ridgewood kind of place. I was a waitress at one of those for a while. That was it. That's all I'd ever done. So we had to learn how to do that. And one thing we did that helped me tremendously was before we opened to everybody else, we had our family come in. And when I say my family, that's about 50 people. So we had them come in and order. And I mean, I had been up, I don't think I'd slept in days. I was so busy prepping all this food, getting everything ready, and had them order so that I could see what the tickets looked like. I could, feel what it felt like to rush through, try to get this food out, get this food hot, keep it to them. How do we know who ordered this food? What are we gonna do? Are we gonna put names on the tickets? Are we putting numbers on the tickets? It was just this huge event. And I mean, that was before I knew. It's also a good idea when you open a kitchen to have a dishwasher, a person who washes the dishes. At the end of the night, I go back in the kitchen. I just wanted to lay on the floor and cry because there were dishes just everywhere. I didn't think about, I need a dishwasher to be back here washing dishes as we go. So it was overwhelming. I mean, that first night, and then we did it again with some more friends. I mean, I learned every single time. The amount of food waste was incredible because you would think I had lived through the Depression. The thought of running out of food scares me. I just can't do it. And so I had over-prepared so many things. But I was like, well, what if every single person orders a baked potato? So I need to have 50 baked potatoes because it could happen. And, well, they didn't. And they never do, but I know that now. But there was a lot of waste, and I've gotten so much better learning each week, how to cut back on this thing and that thing. Okay, we never sell enough of this. We've tweaked the menu a lot because things that I thought would sell very well didn't. Things I didn't expect to sell well sold fabulously. And so all that's still a work in progress, actually.
So we're literally talking about the menu this minute. Like we're sitting here, we're like, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do this. We're a year and 2 months into this.
And we still don't have our menu completely set yet. And we still don't have pricing. If you watch that, what's the British guy on Food Network? That's like the ex-Marine Restaurant Impossible. He comes in and he asks every chef first thing, do you have your recipe costing cards? And I'm like, no, I don't. And I just cringe. I'm like, I need to do that, but I don't have any time to do that yet. I've got to work Excel or something. I have to figure out how to put everything in for one, and the way I measure things is crazy. I'm like, this much.
You saw in the video.
How much is that?
I
don't know how much that is. So I've got to measure out how much that is to put it into this Excel spreadsheet so it can tell me how much it costs me to use that sprinkle. That is overwhelming to me at this point. I know we'll get there, but it just is more than my plate can handle at this point. Finding out, I lived in this world where I thought when you're a restaurant, you can buy from these great distributors and the food is so much cheaper than H-E-B and it's going to be fabulous. That's not the case. Actually, I'm working with a new distributor actually this week trying to change to them because my other one was more expensive than H-E-B, more expensive than Sam's and some things. So I'd order some things from them, and then I'm going to Sam's, I'm going to Walmart, I'm going to H-E-B, trying to buy butter, trying to buy this, trying to buy that. And that is another thing that's just, too many tabs open. Lee's at the grocery store. It's my second home. People know me at Walmart and H-E-B because I'm there
it's also because you buy most all the butter.
And I clear out the dairy section. I buy all the cream cheese, the buttermilk, and the milk, and the half and half, and the cream.
So if you're ever there and you don't have something, it's because she's been there.
I beat you there. So, and H-E-B has limits on butter now. I'm pretty sure that's because of me. In the last year. I mean, literally, I go in there now, I'm like, dang it, they have the limit sign up again. So if I see any friends, I'm like, hey, I'm handing them cash. You want to go give me some butter? Making deals in the parking lot for people. You want to run in there real quick? Because they have the cheapest butter. My distributor is like 4 times the cost for a pound of butter. So it makes no sense to me. Way more convenient, but it's not that much more convenient. So, I mean, sometimes we just have to go get stuff. So that I'm hoping to figure out that better. What I think is going to be my new distributor seems to have a little better pricing on some things, and they can bring it to me, and that'll be super helpful, but it's just still learning.
So that's part of the
Still
struggle,
learning.
right? And so we were talking
Yeah.
about this Sunday, was the fact that it's okay if you don't know everything. It's okay. And you've heard a lot of that from us. You'll figure it out.
We don't.
But we just keep going forward and keep moving forward. And obviously, and that's the tenets that I talked about in the video, is that, you have to have certain parameters and certain things you believe in, right? We believe in customer service. And
I
that's
believe in hot food. If
She
you're-
does. Lee's law number one, hot food.
Yeah.
So she has certain things, I have certain things that we have to believe in. So greeting the customer at the door, that's essential. Making sure that they know they're warm and welcome, no matter who they are. And so that kind of DNA has to permeate your whole world and your business. And that's what comes out. That's kind of what we're talking about. You were talking about kind of the hardships and some different things. You kind of have to learn on the fly. So one of the first things we had planned was the food would come in, or the orders, the food would go out and would be on a Dutch door, kind of a half door.
Yeah.
And you'd say, Kathy, your order's ready, or whatever.
Turns out no one in the place could hear me from the Dutch door. So we had the Dutch door made for nothing.
So
But
then
it
Lee,
seemed like a great idea.
So then Lee obviously taking it to the table, and that's where the magic happens I talked about. And so there's something unique about that event, right? So when Justice and his wife are there and Lee's bringing the food to them, there's a moment there. And just because she's bringing the food to you. And so there's an interaction there, and whoever it is, if it's Bax or Holland or one of the ladies, the Midday Moms or whatever. So these are the kind of, just, hey, figure it out as you go. There's just,
What if you went last week, you may come this week and there may be something a little different because we're like, oh wait, this worked better. Let's try that. So, we're constantly changing the menu, tweaking the menu. I keep telling everybody someday we're going to have real menus, the ones that are like the non-terrible kind, And we found a person who does those. I'm like, and as soon as I do those recipe costing cards, so I know my prices are somewhat right, that's when those are happening. So
that's
I
been
don't
the
know.
challenge, Kathy, of going from a retail orientation to a more restaurant orientation. One of the battles, and me be frank with you, the battles has been perception. You battle perception. When you go into a restaurant, most of the time you expect, hey, this is what the time should be. This is what the food should be. This is what the ordering process. Well, this is all out the window. As you walk in, you've got a game store that you walk up to and you're like, do I sit down? Do I walk to the counter? What do I do? And so you have to train your actual customers. We have a back room it was kind of Donegal Alley. It's kind of a bricked it's supposed to be like Paparolo's, a secret door. I thought,
Except
man, how
no
cool.
one knew there was anything back there, so we couldn't leave the door closed because it looks like there's nothing else after that.
So they just walked to this bricked out door and just turn around and walk back. And I was like, oh, no, there's a game room back there. So now we just have to leave the door open.
Yeah.
We learned, right? And as we grow, we'll figure that out too. And so that's my encouragement to each and every one of y'all, is that just keep going. It's a marathon. Just keep pushing. And so the reality is you'll get to the end. It's just, you just got to keep going. Got to keep going.
We don't know where the end is yet.
No. But
We're
I do
hoping.
know that we're blessed in regard to have Bangston's and King's Landing, obviously, and then Austin Books and all these other businesses that we've had, because if you stick true to your principles, right, and those things that you believe in, then it plays out. Even if you fail, even if one of them closes, and Lee's not against that. At some point, she's like, hey, if this closes, I'm like, I get it, because she's working her tail off, right? But that's, I'm certain, and you can name a restaurant, maybe like, I don't know, Red Lobster, whatever restaurant you want. They started somewhere. There was somebody who was making that food initially, right? Somewhere.
And we're so jealous of them because we're like, you know what? That's like a corporation. So they know exactly what they're doing. We have this conversation all the time. We're like, man, if we were a franchise, somebody would have told us exactly how many people we needed to hire. This is how your kitchen needs to be set up. And this is how this needs to go, and be prepared. It's this many ounces of this on that. I'm like, man, that'd be so easy. Be so easy.
But it wouldn't be as good.
But we're having to figure that out. And so it makes us unique, but it just makes our job a little harder until we
I'll say
figure
this,
it out.
I know I'm biased, but if it's not the best, it's one of the best restaurants in the city. And I say that with pulling and throwing in all kinds of punches. I'm like, there it is, just right out there. Because she's that talented. And obviously now it's just a matter of keeping her alive, right? So she can produce and produce and produce, or train people around her that can do that. And that's kind of where we're at right now.
We're hiring.
Yes, that's right.
If you just think you might like to cook, I can teach you.
That's right.
So
right now, tell them about your midday moms.
Oh yeah, so a couple months ago, it finally occurs to me. I'm like, okay, we've told everybody we're opening at the beginning of the year for lunch. I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And then I went one day. I thought, wait a minute, you know what? This is like a great mom job. If you just work 1 or 2 days a week, from like 8:30 to 3. You're out in time to pick up your kids or do Mother's Day out, whatever it is. And so I just posted on Facebook, my personal one, not the Butter My Biscuit one. I was like, hey, stay-at-home mom friends, who would like a part-time job? I got 4 moms. They're my peers that are just people that I love. And so they come in there now during the week, and they're my moms. They know, they cook for their families. They don't know what I do, and they just crack me up because they're like, you know, one of them said, you know, we should pay you because you're teaching us all this stuff. I'm like, well, I'm up for that, but okay. As it is, I'll pay you. So, I mean, you know, they come in and they help me, and they're, you know, they show up. I didn't know that was an option when you got a job, but it turns out it really is. Some people just don't show up. That's a weird thing. But they show up. They're responsible, reliable. They get there on time. And they make me happy. It makes my job easier because they can do things, and I show them things, and then they figure it out. I have them there right now. That's why I'm here, because I really didn't think I was going to be able to be here because this is lunch hour. But I've got 2 midday moms there, and they're figuring it out. They're doing it, and it's awesome. And they work like 1 day a week. So it's a bonus for them and me. So it's been a blessing. It really has.
Sure. Other questions?
No, it's okay.
Thanks. So what are some of the successes that kind of kept you guys going on the path? Like, you talked a lot about how tiring it is and how much hours you have to work, but what are some of the successes that has kind of kept you going in the process and kept you motivated?
For me, I would say the successes are when people come in and they have to stop by the kitchen before they leave. And they come by and they're like, I just had to tell you, that was the best biscuit I've ever had. Or I just had to tell you that, and that makes me happy. It brings me complete joy to know that I've done something that they consider special and that they love. And I love to cook. So that makes me happy. And, you know, or when I set something down and they look at that and they're like, oh my gosh, that was not what I expected. That's huge, or that's beautiful. I'm like, thanks. That's great.
It kind of goes to that point we were talking about earlier about perception. So when you walk into a restaurant, and all of us have been in a restaurant at some point, when you walk in, you have a perception. Well, this completely throws that perception off. And so sometimes food comes out at different times. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's not. If it's a baked potato, it comes out pretty quick. If it's a grilled...
BPT.
Which is?
A bacon pimento tomato sandwich. It's roasted tomatoes because I don't like raw tomatoes. So it's my restaurant. I get to roast them. You saw that was
in the video. So that was on a biscuit. But if it's grilled, it takes time.
Because you got to melt the pimento cheese. Because who wants a grilled cheese that has cold cheese in the middle?
So some of the conventions you kind of have to educate. So our employees have to kind of guide people. And we've had people get angry. And we're like, hey, I know, but she's cooking you a meal. And then they're satisfied by that.
Once they realize I'm not McDonald's and I don't have the heating lamp with all these little sausage biscuits in there, I'm like, what you don't understand is when you give me that order for your brunch, I'm scrambling your eggs, I'm frying your potatoes, I have your sausage on the griddle, I have somebody else putting butter on your biscuit, and we're doing all this at the same time to get this food out to you, and it's going to be hot when it gets there, and it's going to be good, but good doesn't come under a heat lamp. So sometimes you got to wait a couple minutes.
So the critical aspect of it is that any one of us who've had a poor experience at a restaurant, this will humble you. So if you ever want to have an opportunity to see from the other side,
go work in a kitchen and you will be the nicest customer ever
you realize,
at any restaurant.
Oh
you'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I never thought about what it would look like to look up and see nothing but like 12 tickets and you've got 8 on the table you're already working on. And you're like, oh God.
So yeah, so used to 20, 30 tickets like she was talking about when we first opened would blow her away. Well, now she regularly do 50, 60, 70 tickets a day.
And so that's really fast paced.
So
I'm just going to say, me and my kids, we're running on Saturday mornings. I will log in like 17,000 steps in my kitchen on a Saturday with my kids. I mean, we're moving.
You had another question back here? Yep. And also, I'd like to say on successes, obviously the bottom line matters. And so obviously seeing if all the pistons are firing, so if games are selling, beer and wine are selling, obviously the food sells itself. If all those things are firing, then we have a really great day. And so we have those more and more frequently. So it's been some lean times, but over the last year and 2 months, you start to see those kind of pistons firing. And once they start doing it, then you realize, hey, there's possibilities here. Go ahead.
So you guys have 30 plus years of experience in running businesses. For a lot of us in here, we have that times 0. So I mean, like you said, it's like you open up a computer and there's too many tabs open, and for some people they look at that and they don't even know they don't even want to deal with it, so they just close the computer. What do you do in times like that? If you find yourself with, you don't even know where the first place to start is, let alone you don't even have your idea fleshed out all the way. Do you get help from somebody? What does that look like for you
Sure.
guys?
My dad always taught me to ask questions, do exactly what you're doing. There's lots of people who've been down the path before. So those conversations, and I think Lee was surprised more by this than I was because I've been in business, but other restaurateurs are willing to share with you all their experiences. They're telling you, they want to tell their story.
They'll let me come look in their kitchens. I've had a lot of places that'll be like, well, yeah, come on back and we'll show you around. And I'm like, oh, I never thought of putting that there. That makes so much sense, but I just never thought about that. And people, it's amazing what people are willing to share. I mean, I let people in my kitchen all the time. And I'm like, yeah, this is what it looks like back here. This is what we do. And I mean, everybody has been so helpful. To me, ultimately, though, I mean, we just lean on each other a whole lot. I will say, when we get home at night, our kids get real tired of hearing us talk business, though, and sometimes our daughter will be like, okay, you two, stop. This is family time. But we have each other, and that is a bonus and maybe a detriment all at the same time, because we can keep talking about it at home and flesh out our ideas. Well, what do you think if we do this? What if we do that? And so that helps me tremendously. His dad is a wealth of information. He's one of the smartest men I know. And my mom's a retired banker. She's one of the smartest women I know. So, I mean, you know, your family everybody has a little spot somewhere. Your friends, somebody's always going to know more than you about something. Just don't be afraid to ask.
Sure, and admit that. So that very point, you're like, look, I don't know where to start. That's a great starting point right there.
That's right. And then somebody will be like, well, try this if that's what you're worried about, and get that done.
Sure. So there's always some aspect to our business that we're trying. I mean, obviously the TBC we talked about a little bit, the kitchen, and I didn't go into all the building codes, and we had to have, you know, all these different things. So it took. We thought we'd be open in about 3 to 4 months. It took a year to get open. And so some of the details of that I can tell you afterwards, because it was long and drawn out, and obviously you're paying rent and you're doing all these things. So you
and
start
you
to
have
wonder.
no business open. We paid rent for a year almost without having any income because we
So
couldn't get the
what I
doors
do,
open.
I went back to the ownership and I start renegotiating. I'm like, hey, we're not open yet because the city says this, or hey, we gotta have an architect come back and do this, or whatever. So when all those tabs are out, I can handle what I can handle today.
That's his saying too. I'll come up to him with a problem. He's like, I can't do that today. I can only handle this right here.
What's in front of me?
I have to do this that's in front of me right now. And we've learned, just because it has been a stressful year and we've had a lot on our plates, that sometimes we just have to go, okay, I can't deal with that right now. I just have to get this done. And that's me in the kitchen sometimes. I'm like, you know, and I tell my staff all the time, I'm like, don't look at those tickets on the wall. Look at these we have on the table. This is all we have to do right now, are these right here. Just do one at a time and knock it out. We'll get to those. Don't look at it right now.
Does that answer? You got one over here?
You kind of started to touch on it a little bit, but one thing that we kind of talk about in class, one of the biggest concerns is that like family and business balance. So I was hoping you could maybe touch on like what that looks like for your family.
We're way out of balance right now.
For our family right now, it looks like everybody's at the store. That's where we hang out.
But I think it's a lot of that is what we talked about earlier. I think in the infancy of a business, and that's what we're talking about is King's Landing, Bankston's is pretty much on autopilot. I mean, we have our struggles and our ups and downs there too, but that's been going for a lot of years, and that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, 33 years there. But King's Landing, that's kind of our baby. That's our infant right now. So we're trying to get it to toddle a bit and try to walk around.
But we're getting better. It's getting better. And just know that when you go into something, your family balance is going to be off for a little while. But know that it is just a little while. We are better. When we first opened and we were open Fridays and Saturdays, that meant that I worked from open on Friday until the minute we closed and cleaned the last dish at 10:30, 11:30 at night.
Right. So it's from like 6 a.m. to almost midnight.
So those were really long days for me. And we did that just until
a few months ago.
Just till a couple months ago is when I finally was like, okay, I need somebody to work evenings for me because I miss my family. I want to be home in the evenings with my kids and this and that. And it's finding good people too. That's the other thing, is finding somebody that you can trust to leave that with so that you can be gone and be at home. Our kids, like I said, they help us on Saturday mornings. Well, used to, they were both there. We've gotten to where now I'm like, okay, just one of you. So they rotate now, and one will come work and the other one has the day off, you know, like a normal kid. But we can do that now. We couldn't have done that in the beginning. And so we're starting to see things get better.
Leadership, there's people stepping up into those roles. And so give them the opportunity. I think, you know, God's put people in our avenue who's like, okay, here's Joey. We just hired Joey as a manager. So he's stepping into that role. So there's people who are starting to take on some of that. And I think just our DNA is that we're willing to do anything. Well, sometimes we're going to have to start delegating that. And so that's kind of understanding
That's the
that.
hardest part, is finding somebody that you feel like you can just leave it with and feel like it's still going to be okay.
Because your care is for every single customer, right? And so you want every single person to have the best possible experience that they can have, and that you can provide, humanly possible. And my expectation is pretty high, right? And so it's a matter of convincing that employee that, hey, we've got to do this to the best of our ability. I cannot stand, you know, passiveness or incapable hands or, you know, any form of laziness. I can't stand that. And so having a customer that tells me on the backside, we were at a bed and breakfast a couple weeks ago, and we started getting reports back about what had happened on a Friday night.
What our employees don't realize is it's a small town.
So we
and
learned.
so people come in that know us, and then they'll text us. They'll be like, well,
And
so I was in there.
So understanding and grasping that gives us an opportunity, and then you address it with your employees and say, hey, this matters.
It's hard, but it can be done. Just got to be patient.
Going back to like your college days, is there any activities or classes you wish you had taken that would have helped you out now?
Did I mention I'm an elementary school teacher?
I
I could have taken a lot that would have helped more than that, but.
I don't think so. I think it reminds me a lot of like Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I think if you are smart enough to endure a college and get through that, you're capable enough to handle pretty much anything you set your mind to, if you have the passion for it. So as I look back, I went to Baylor, and I don't think if there's anything that I missed out on. There wasn't anything that I wish, oh man, I wish I'd done that. I think just being driven and focused to handle the obstacles in front of you. I think if you can get through the 4 years of school, then you can get through life and business. You might fail at some point, which we have at different times, but you're gonna find your path. So I would encourage you, just, you know, I don't have no regrets, or there's no voids there.
If there was a recipe costing card class, I would
Yeah.
sign up for that today.
Yeah. Anybody?
So you guys have a game store. There's a lot of fads and things that come through, and then you have a restaurant that you own, so you can change the menu. I got to manage a Persian restaurant once, and we were changing the menu constantly. So with all this, how do you guys make decisions about what to offer, when to offer something new or to scale something back? Since you have so much control over that, how do you make the decision when to do it?
I think from her perspective, it's what she wants to do. Basically, it just comes down to her instincts and what she chooses and wants to make.
And that, to some degree, that's very true. Funny enough, I did not originally, you know, obviously I told you I started with tamales. I didn't have biscuits. The biscuit thing came just because I cook everything when I cater. I'll do anything from, I've done brisket and sausage and potato salad all the way to eggplant parmesan, chicken parmesan, enchiladas. I have a Hispanic woman inside of me screaming to get out. And so I cook a lot of Mexican food because I love it. So the biscuit was a way for me to kind of be able to do everything that I do and still call it a biscuit restaurant. So I'll have brisket enchiladas with queso, rice, and beans, and a Texas biscuit because it's a biscuit restaurant. But that night I wanted enchiladas, so that's what I made. The brunch menu is much more consistent because it's, you know, sandwiches, soups, and then, you know, the breakfast options and such. So that pretty much stays the same. Friday and Saturday is kind of when I let my creative side come out more, and it'll be a special of the night, like enchiladas or pork tenderloin, or, I mean, we do everything. I did shepherd's pie this last week with brisket, just kind of what I'm hungry for.
Yeah.
Something.
Basically, it comes down to her. That's what she.
Yeah.
It's what she's
but
hungry
things
for.
that I thought would sell massively, Like I made these things called Texas Poppers. It was like brisket and cream cheese and cheddar cheese inside of a jalapeno wrapped in bacon. I was like, those are awesome. And people did like them, but they would only buy like 1 or 2 a night. And it takes like 15 minutes in the oven. So their food's ready first. Their appetizer's still in the oven. And so it just didn't make sense anymore. So I took that off the menu because I was like, I really love this, but it just doesn't work here. I originally wanted to do all these flavors of biscuits, which I still do occasionally, like, you know, a ham, cheese, and chive biscuit. This last week I made one with Guinness beer and Irish cheddar to go with the shepherd's pie, and it's awesome. But I can't make 18 different kinds of biscuits every morning because I'm the only one making biscuits, and it takes a long time to make from scratch every single batch of biscuits. So I've had to trim down what I thought I would offer, but I still bring them out for little occasions. They're still in my back pocket for when I need them. And I can do those. I do those when I cater. I'll offer a lot more options of biscuits and things, but if that kind of sort of answers your question.
Any other questions? So I brought some comics. So I told you about Free Comic Day. So there's free comics up here if y'all want those.
There's biscuits in the back.
And there's biscuits. Yeah, there's biscuits for y'all too.
They were warm when we got here. I don't know now, but they're really good biscuits, I promise. They're buttermilk, just the plain ones.
Thank you very much. We appreciate y'all's time and obviously giving the opportunity to come talk to y'all.